Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over Live. My next guest was a cast member of MTV's The Real World San Francisco in the mid-1990s. She's been a frequent guest host on ABC's The View, as well as a columnist and blogger. She's now the national spokesman for the Libre Initiative, an organization for advancing economic empowerment in the Hispanic community. I sat down with Rachel Campos Duffy a little earlier to discuss the cultural stories of the week and the new Share the Dream campaign. Take a look. Rachel, I want to start with this MTV show, which you have some background with MTV
Sure.
and reality television, which we're going to talk about in a second. 16 and Pregnant. Now, some researchers have looked at this, and they've seen the teen pregnancy rate drop as the ratings for this show go up. Is that a good thing, or perhaps a not so good thing?
You know, I've always had conflicted feelings about that show. More positive than negative, I will say.
Okay.
And part of it is, unless you see it, I mean, you know as a parent, unless you're actually being a parent, you don't know how difficult it is. You don't know what it's like to lose your freedom, to have this. And so this is really the first time teenage girls have been able to see what that's really like. So that doesn't surprise me.
For a teenager.
For a teenager to see what it's like for another teen to do it. And so I do think it's a cautionary tale. I also think the show has been very subversively pro-life. And in fact, there was a time when the pro-choice people were trying to do a version of that where the girl chooses abortion. It never got off the ground because it's really not. There's nothing.
Yeah, it's not the happiest. Not the happiest ending. Yeah.
Right, and so in this one, you see the difficulties, but you also see the joy, which is what parenting is about. You see the joy of the grandparents. You see, you know, all of it, and so I think that's good. And I also think that you know, it's probably a positive that these girls are choosing to look at this and make another choice.
Now, some people say this encourages, it glamorizes teen pregnancy, and it may be encouraging contraceptive use. Your thoughts?
It encourages a lot of bad behavior in that you see these boyfriends have like free reign in the girl's parents' house. They open the fridge. They're like, you know, it's obvious that premarital sex is kind of a non-issue in this. So definitely, as a Christian parent, watching it with your teenager could be a good thing, but you'll want to watch and sort of guide them through all of that, because it is a moral minefield, if you will.
Yeah, no, well, and that's with any, I think it's with any program, particularly today, whether it's something on Nickelodeon or Disney. I mean, you've always got to watch it with your kids and know who's there and what the message is.
That's right. Absolutely.
Let's talk for a moment about this study, as long as we're talking about TV viewing and kids.
Sure.
There's a Japanese study out, and it says increased TV viewing, and I want to get this right, causes a child's brain to structurally change. It adds to the gray matter, the fat of the brain. Should we be turning the TVs off at home?
I think I have a lot of gray matter in my own brain, maybe.
You and me both.
You know, obviously, it can be a crutch. We don't want our kids just plopped in front. But I would be lying to you if I didn't tell you that I use the TV as a babysitter to get chores done in my house. It happens. I think it's, again, about being very selective. When you do let them do it, what are they watching? And there are good choices. EWTN has great cartoon choices.
They have some children's programming things. And some of the shows, I mean, even some of the network programs, they're fine. You just have to be selective. And
very selective.
I worry, though, about the prolonged, they just sit there and they can watch the same episode.
I know.
SpongeBob. They can watch SpongeBob, the same episode, over and over. See, I think when I read this study, my first thought was, it's not the viewing, it's the sedentary nature of the body at the time. You're just sitting there like a potato for hours. Because you're not moving, I think it's probably contributing to the brain
And it's
loss.
what's not happening, right? You're not reading. They're not playing
running,
outside.
they're not
playing with their toys and having imaginative play. And
I want to talk about a LA parenting trend, and you being a mother once again, you will I mean, you've been a mother all along, but a new mother again.
A new mother again.
This thing is called RIE, and it stands for Resources for Infant Educarers. The basic parenting approach here is treat the kid like an adult. No more baby talk, no toys. Your thoughts on this parenting approach?
Well, On the positive side, I think it's better than that entitled, spoiled, anything goes, indulgent. And you see kids that can't even sit straight in a chair because they've never been told to do anything, with discipline. I do think that it's interesting, the idea of treating kids with dignity. I think that's important. I never liked the idea of people who feed their kids without plates or on the floor. I do think that they should be, they're uncivilized. It is our job to civilize them, right?
This is not a den at the zoo.
Exactly. Yeah. And so there's an aspect of it that's very interesting. What I don't like is I don't like anything that's very trendy in parenting, because inevitably it never works. I think that there's something very organic and natural about parenting, and whatever happened to just plain old common sense.
Right.
And but maybe these people need someone. They need to pay someone to tell them to use a plate or not baby talk. And
gosh,
I'll pay. They can pay me to do it.
But no toys. I mean, come on,
Yes,
no toys. They
silly.
let them cry. Let them cry. Well, they're not adults. That's why you're a parent.
I agree.
I mean, why don't we do away with babysitters? See how long you can go out with that scene.
That would be so cheap for me.
Yeah, you'd like that. Just 7 wild people
You have no
running
idea
around.
how much I spend looking at a babysitter for a night out.
Now, I want to talk about, you are part of the Libre Initiative, which is a group that encourages entrepreneurship and liberty. Focusing on the Hispanic population, you all recently released some data.
Sure.
$2,500, the family income is down for the Hispanic population. 2.5 million more Latinos in poverty than before. And yet you say this is America's most entrepreneurial demographic. It doesn't seem that way, Rachel.
It's really interesting. I think when they're given the choice, so we see that there's a group of people out there really pushing entitlements, dependency, all these things that sort of zap people's,
drain them of their
of their original vision for coming here, of their self-initiative. But when you present the American Dream, and we do that we have a series called Share the Dream. You can go to the website, you can see. In fact, one of the stories.
I'm going to show it to you in 1 second.
Yeah, one of the stories is my family story. When they see that, and we've polled it, it's amazing. It's just, you can't even compare it. They still want it, they still like it. And in fact, if you poll non-Hispanics, the general population, ask them if they think the next generation will do better than they are, they'll say, no, I'm not. They're very pessimistic. Hispanics remain extremely optimistic. They're very bullish on the American Dream. They want it. The problem is there is a group out there trying to push the agenda that the American Dream is dead, that it's rigged. And if you think the dream is dead, then it makes sense to take the check, to take the assistance.
So this Share the Dream initiative is not the Dream Act. It's the American Dream you're trying to
We're promoting the idea of showing really the whole country, not just Hispanics, really positive stories of people who have actually come and overcome hardships, overcome poverty, and created that American Dream for their family. I mean, your family is one of them.
Sure.
I mean, in one generation, it's astounding. It really is only in America, and it's a story that we still need to tell.
And that we take for granted. I want to give people a little smidgen
Sure,
of this.
absolutely.
Here's part of the Share the Dream campaign, Libre's initiative.
As a mother of 6, nothing is more important to me than my family. My dad's family came from Mexico. He grew up very poor. With that poverty came a sense of resourcefulness. He figured out at a very young age that with hard work and ingenuity, he could have a better life. I know how hard my dad worked. I don't want my kids to lose that work ethic. I think kids are growing up in a time when this sense of entitlement and dependency on government is starting to take over. And that's why I joined Libre. We are on the ground, in the communities, offering programs that empower people. We're fighting for the freedom and opportunity that make the American dream possible.
What do you hope people's reaction will be to this? What are you all looking for?
I am hoping that Hispanics will go back and take pride in what we do best. No, you can say whatever you want about Hispanics, but nobody can challenge our work ethic. We have an incredible work ethic. We're willing to sacrifice tremendously for the next generation. Remember, it's Marco Rubio who said, you know, my father, you know, worked in the back of the room behind a bar so I could be in the front of the room behind a podium. That's the American dream story. That's a story that I'm afraid we're going to lose if we forget why we came here, and also if we start going down this path of entitlement, bigger government, more dependency. Our first Latino Pope is the one who said, man earns his dignity by earning his bread. There are positive benefits of work, not just in being more prosperous, but truly it's part of the human condition in earning our dignity, in feeling good about ourselves and having happiness, and having the money to be able to share that with other people, which is, you know, a whole other aspect of happiness.
Now, before I let you go, you mentioned the Pope. The Pope this past weekend in the Sistine Chapel, he was baptizing all these babies. They're crying out, and during his homily, I guess it was impromptu, he says, look, these are the most important people in the room. Go ahead and feed them. Feed them if you have to. Now, this is being blared across the landscape of the media. The Pope says, breastfeed in the Sistine Chapel, says Pope Francis. You would say what?
Well, Raymond, you
may
or may not like to know this, but I breastfeed in Mass, modestly. Yeah. But I think that he's absolutely right. Jesus said, let the little children come to me. Jesus said, feed the poor, feed the hungry.
So you're doing all of the above
I'm doing
at one
all
time.
of it right there in Mass. You know, this is the human touch that people are really responding to. I mean, how many moms out there have sat in Mass and the baby's crying and they still want to be in Mass? It's like, this is natural. I mean, I imagine the Virgin Mary sat in the, you know, and she breastfed. Yeah. What is wrong with it if you're doing it modestly, you're doing something that's important, and I just think it's so great. I mean, he really is a man of the people. Okay, we'll leave it there. Rachel Campos, Duffy. You can follow Rachel's work at the Libre Initiative and learn more about the Share the Dream campaign at thelibreinitiative.com.